Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is from 1975, and it's Manila in the Claws of Light, directed by Lino Brocca. This is on Criterion Region A Blu-ray, spine number 926. It's also available in BFI with another one of Brocca's films. He's a Filipino director whose films are quite hard to get a hold of. He spent time in America. He worked in a leper colony in Hawaii, apparently, and he came back to the Philippines in the late 60s and started making socio-political films under the reign of Marcos, when the Philippines was under martial law. So it's probably not the best place or time to make films, but make films he did. We've all been in this game long enough to realise that there's only so many stories. In Manila in the Claws of Light, it's a story that we've all seen countless times, back from the days of Dickens, and many authors have written about it. But despite the cliches in the film, or the story of the film, it is an amazingly powerful film. It's about a young man, Julio, who comes from the countryside into the big city, looking for the love of his life, who's left their hometown, and he gets ground down and disillusioned and used up by the big nasty city. Now again, this is something that we've seen so many times before, but the way Brocca deals with the subject matter, we are just hooked into the character from an early point in the film. The film's 126 minutes long, but it really flies by because you are hooked into the character of Julio as he goes from place to place, situation to situation, hoping to find his lost girl. Now again, another cliche that's in the film that interspersed with the scenes in the tough, unforgiving, uncaring city. We have flashbacks to a more, beautifully shot, beautiful countryside time with his girlfriend. But again, despite the cliches, the film just works wonderfully. It's an unrepentingly grim film though. Even for me, I do like my grim films. At some point during the film, you just wish that something would go right for him. But again, Brocca wasn't really interested in making films that, everything works out and everything's great and we're all happy, because again, under the regime that was in the Philippines at the time, that wasn't really a realistic view of the world or of Manila at the time. So Julio starts in the construction company, but even there, the meagre pay that he gets, the construction company take a cut of the pay, and again throughout his journey, he falls in with people who are in a similar situation as him, while obviously Marcos and his wife Imelda, who's famous for having a million pairs of shoes, obviously live a different life. So there's wonderful camaraderie. Early on in the film, Julio collapses in the heat just because he hasn't actually eaten for a day or a few days, and the guys on the site kind of rally round, and they're allowed to sleep on the site at night because obviously a lot of them are dirt poor and have to save whatever money they can. Again, there's characters who have like a wife and 8 kids to feed, whereas Julio is driven. He finds out that his girlfriend has been prostituted essentially, and we see flashbacks of this character who pretty much goes around all the kind of towns in the countryside, essentially picking up young women to send to the big city under the guise of, oh, you'll get an education and you'll get nice clothes, but they're sold into prostitution basically. Julio is let go by the construction company just because they're cutting back. Accidents happen on the site, which gives an early indication of, again, the city is uncaring and unforgiving, and bad things happen. Again, it's a thing that we've seen hundreds of times before, but maybe because it is Manila, maybe it's because it's a different world, a different culture. To my eyes, it seems fresh, but again, I think it's more about the way it's shot as a much more naturalistic, realistic approach. And the actor who plays Julio's got great eyes, and we see everything from his eyes. He doesn't talk a lot, but he's kind of laser focused on finding his girl, and he becomes involved in the gay prostitution, because again, kind of the two things that these poor people that come to the city looking to make some money have as their hands for manual labour, and their bodies for a different kind of manual labour. So he gets involved with a gay prostitute, and he's introduced into this world as well. But again, there's a real kind of sense of desperation, and this is the way you have to survive to make money. So you put aside, your feelings, and this is how you make money. So he finds his girlfriend is involved with a Chinese man who pretty much runs a stable of prostitutes. So we see him, sitting outside the building at night, watching the light go on and off, as he tries to get in contact with her. But I'll just leave the plot there, whether he meets her or doesn't meet her, whether it all ends up, everybody goes home happy or not. I'll leave that for you to watch. It's a stunningly good film. It's a pretty, like I say, it's a pretty bleak film. Broca wanted to make films that would challenge the audience. An interesting twist, not really twist, an interesting detail is in the book. It starts off with him killing somebody in the city for no real reason, just to get some money off him. And Broca kind of went, yeah, I'm not doing that at the start of the film, because how are we supposed to be on the character's side when we're just introduced to him killing somebody for some money? It doesn't really make much sense. And why do you expect the audience to actually be on board with him for the whole journey if he's seen to be a scumbag at the start. So that was a good move by Broca for recognising that. It's a phenomenal work, great central performance. Again, he does a lot like great actors do, with his eyes. Again, he doesn't really talk a lot. He lets the people he meets on the construction site, and again, those people, the working poor, again, which might be another cliche, but they have more of a sense of community and they help each other out and they feed each other if they're short of a meal, and they when he's laid off, he's not allowed to sleep on the construction site anymore, so again, he has to, people offer him a bed for the night. So there's just more of a sense of community. There is a kind of obviously background of the martial law, the police pretty much doing what they like, being corrupt. And we do it near the end of the film, we kind of come across a protest. But the whole film is kind of a kind of subtle protest at Marcos and living under that dictatorship. And it's definitely a film about the have-nots. There's quite a moving scene where Julio and again somebody he comes across and befriends in this kind of wasteland, with these children and people moving around corrugated iron, on this slag heap essentially. It's actually quite moving. I mean, it's an unflinching film, but it's all the better for that. And again, because I was so engaged with the character, even I, who like my bleak films, I was wishing for something to go right for him. So not only is the film pretty much a masterpiece, the release by Criterion is just as good. It's a 4K digital restoration. Again, a lot of people had to contribute to get this film actually a kind of proper release. The Film Development Council in the Philippines, the Film Foundation's World Cinema Project, BFI, Cinema Artists Philippines, and the cinematographer did the colour tracing on the film as well. There's an introduction by Martin Scorsese, so again, if you don't take my word for it, you can take Martin Scorsese's word for it that this is a film you should watch. There's a 1987 documentary by Christian Blackwood called Signed, Lena Broca, which is excellent. There's a 1975 making of Manila, a Filipino film about the making of the film, which features Broca and actors Hilda Coronel and Rafael Rocco Jr., who play the two leads. And there's a new interview with critic, filmmaker and festival programmer Tony Raines, who is excellent as usual, about the background of Broca and the background of the Filipino film industry at the time and how they made the film at the time. And again, it's got a booklet with an essay in it as well. BFI do have an edition of this on Blu-ray, as well as a 1976 film by Broca, which I have already ordered. But this is pretty sensational stuff. Again, a perfect example of, yes, you can have a story that we've all seen countless times before, but if you execute it in such a good way, you can overcome the cliches and perhaps familiarity of the story. It's just a wonderful, horrible film. It's one of those films that is in the wonderful horrible, the beautiful horrible section. But I would highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. So thanks very much for watching this random review of Manila in the Claws of Light. I'm not sure In the Claws of Light is appropriate. It should be In the Claws of Darkness probably. But never mind. So thanks very much for watching. Again, let me know in the comments if you've seen Manila in the Claws of Light and what you thought of it. And hopefully join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying cheerio.